Hi, it's Amy Schaefer with the Iowa Real Estate Academy, and I get to have a guest today. This is Colleen with the Real Estate Commission. She is the dun auditor. No, that's not what it's about at all. And I put together kind of a list of 10 things today. And it might get to be a little bit more than 10 if we get some other good ideas to talk about, of just some top things I wanted to make sure that you know about the trust account auditing process and what this all means. So without any further delay, Colleen, tell us who you are and a little bit about your role as the trust account auditor.
Sure. And thank you so much, Amy, for the opportunity to jump on this call, in this Zoom call, and to share information from the Real Estate Commission and talk about our rules and kind of what my job is as a trust account auditor. I have been with PLB since 2008. I'm coming up on 15 years. I've
Wow.
been with the state of Iowa now for 30 years. So it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
One of my first kind of topics here was no trust account brokerages, which I know you probably have a pretty simple answer. If you don't have a trust account, there's really nothing for you to audit. But I thought maybe you would talk a little bit about how often brokerages aren't having their own trust accounts now. They're utilizing another resource like an attorney, maybe what that paperwork kind of looks like. Anything that you would want to share about those no trust account brokerages?
Sure. And I did want to also, I meant to jump in a little bit about, before we jump into trust account, I'll jump in a little bit on what we kind of do, what the role is of the auditor. We conduct audits all over the state of Iowa, and we also conduct audits in all the other states. A good example is I just audited a California brokerage, and he was doing business in Iowa. So anyone that does business in Iowa, we do have a duty to audit them. We write reports, we attend investigative meetings every month, we attend commission meetings every month, which are typically the first first week of the month. And also I've been doing E&O audits, a very high non-compliant rate there. As you guys know, there's $1,000 fine on those. So it's kind of heartbreaking because I know E&O is not that expensive to purchase. We do review from different agents. So some of you guys taking these classes are like, what are the chances that somebody's going to get my file? We make sure we take a sample from different agents. So there's a strong probability your file may get picked. Some of the things, and we'll get into this a little bit later, as Amy and I get into things a little deeper, but some of the different things that we look at in your files are going to be pretty basic documents like your closing statement, your purchase agreement, your buyer's agency agreement, your listing agreement, your property management disclosure, your lead paint disclosure, addendums, things like that. Those are kind of the things that we do in an audit. And we obviously assist customers via email and via phone. And I do enjoy attending classes such as Amy's here, where we can jump on and just do a little bit of Q&A. And then I have traveled the whole state for several years. We kind of started going to a little bit different format where we're doing, because you brokers and your real estate licensees have your information up in a cloud. We tend to do those off-site now because a lot of offices you walk in and there's nothing in their office. It's up in the Google Cloud. And then I have gone to Nebraska, Illinois, Minnesota, places like that where it's not too far from the border. So your question about no trust accounts, my initial response 3 years ago was I would cringe. Now my response is no problem. You just need to make sure that if you choose not to have a trust account, that you fill out that trust account affidavit that's on our website under the trust account resources. That's telling us that, hey, that you don't have a trust account. And so, we can kind of, with that in mind, we can just go straight to the file review.
Okay. And are you starting to see more brokerages? I feel like I am, but I don't have a litmus test for any proof, but do you feel like more brokerages are starting to move to that no trust account platform?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And absolutely they are. The percentage is gone up astronomically high. A lot of the new people coming in, the new brokers and the new firms, many are choosing to use a attorney or a closing company. So
Yeah.
yes, definitely. I would ask you, and we're going to talk about purchase agreements. I know Amy has a great agenda up here, and we're going to be talking about purchase agreements, but I would like to ask you as a class, think back to the last purchase agreement you filled out. Where did it say the earnest money was, and is it there?
Yeah.
And I as far as no trust account goes, my big thing I ask you agents is slow down, look
Yeah.
at what you're filling out. Sometimes agents will put together a purchase agreement and they'll say that my money's in Amy's trust account. Amy doesn't have a
Yeah, I
trust
don't have one.
account.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a problem out there. So that's my thing is I ask you agents is just please slow down a little bit. If you're going to put a trust account, make sure that that broker or that firm has a trust account.
And that's a really good point, because I know a lot of our local brokerage or our local board of realtors, which doesn't really have anything to do with real estate commission, but we do talk to each other. We've really tried to create some of these uniform purchase agreements that actually don't just state the earnest money amount anymore, but where it's being located. So if you are one of those brokerages that does not have a trust account, make sure that you're communicating that in multiple spots on the MLS under agent only remarks or somewhere, so that when the buyer's agent fills out that purchase agreement, they know exactly what to write on there so that it's clear. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, Amy, that's very true. We do look at that, just like you said. It's and there's a line, you guys have a box, and like Amy said, you guys are getting better and better and better on these forms. But if there's a box and it says other, just don't check other. Say where it's going.
Yeah, put the detail
Just
there. Yeah.
and a lot of times, and I think Amy and I talked about this briefly. Maybe I believe that we did. Sometimes what brokers around the state are doing now is they've chosen not to have a trust account. And so what they're doing is they're doing for every listing that they have a simple affidavit, and it literally says, and I'm using Amy as since Amy is a broker, it basically, here, I'll simplify the language for you. It says, Amy does not have a trust account. Funds will be put into line, fill it out, or else if it's always going to title company A, or if it's going to attorney A, then type that in. But the big thing, you guys, is to get that buyer and that seller to sign off on that. Because as I told Amy, it not only protects your clients, but it protects Amy. Amy has this affidavit with her. It's kind of a safety net, I call it. And they can say, well, Amy, I didn't know my $1,000 wasn't in your trust account. And Amy's going to whip out that affidavit and say, yeah, you did.
Yeah. And we have all the means through our multiple listing services. And I realize everyone maybe listening to this is not a member of a local board or the state board. But a lot of us are, probably at least 80% of us are. There is the ability to upload additional documentation, seller disclosure, lead-based paint. And that's a really good point, Colleen, that extra form, that affidavit, just about earnest money, so that there's crystal clear communication. That could be another one of those forms that you upload as well. So that, again, when a buyer writes an offer, it's really easy for them to download, fill out, so that it's clear where the earnest money is going.
Yeah. And I think too, I've got some brokers that are really confident. They're like, don't need it. I have a person that scours my files, and that purchase agreement will not go out. We will make sure that purchase agreement, that's great. But then there's that other broker that I see out there that's like, you know what? We're human. We might miss it. We're going to do this just as a precautionary. So again, it's totally up to you brokers and what you want to do.
Yeah, that's one of my plan ahead to get ahead moments. Just plan something so that it isn't an issue later.
Yeah, I like that saying. That's perfect for this situation.
Perfect. I stole it from a former president of principal, so I did not come up with it on my own.
Love it.
Do you want to talk? Are we ready to talk about the three-way tie?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
So a lot of people get really daunted, I want to say, over this three-way tie. And, we have a resource out there. It's a form, and some people absolutely can't stand it. And there's nowhere in our rules that you're going to see where it says you have to use the auditor's three-way tie form. Doesn't say that, never will say that. But what we do say is do your three-way tie every month. And all that is, I'm going to simplify it. And I know some of you are going to be like, wow, this is super easy. So it's your general ledger. That in turn matches your reconciled bank statement. Your third one you're going to pull together is all your open earnest monies. So at the end of the day, and you could do this daily if you wanted, at the end of the day, if you have $1,000 in there in your general ledger, or let's say 10,000, and your reconciliation at the end of what are we into April? So let's say March, your end of your reconciliation was 10,000. You've got a two-way tie now. Now all you have to do is add up that open individual ledgers. That's the three-way tie for real estate. The three-way tie for property management is not any different. It's your general ledger 1, reconciliation 2, 3, instead of open earnest monies, you're going to have owner's funds. So it's 1, 2, 3. It's general ledger, reconciliation, and then your owner's balances. That's the three-way tie. And if you don't mind, Amy, I just had a case this month where the broker did exactly what he was supposed to do at the end of the month. So he's reconciling and he's off. It turns out, okay, so he does his three-way tie and he's off. And he's like, something happened. He goes to staff. Staff goes into the record, into the general ledger. Sure enough, she had accidentally pulled out a security deposit from the trust account when it should have been pulled from the property management trust account. So that's a perfect prime example of how well that works. And he caught it immediately. He deposited the money immediately, and away we go.
And now let's tie a couple conversations together now that you've said this.
Okay.
Because I do know that there's a few brokers that have gotten a challenge going for themselves where they released earnest money to a buyer and they weren't holding the earnest money to begin with. And now that's put their books off. So
absolutely.
See how all of these things really do stack for the broker to be successful. And as long as you're documenting and recording, and I think probably what a lot of brokers do that are maybe they think they're small enough, they don't need to reconcile every month, or they're really big and they think they're too busy to reconcile every month. You've got to have a pattern of doing these things, or it's easy to get out of control and not know where to go back and start correcting it. Where do you think most brokerages are really following the rule of reconciling every month? Or
yeah, I mean, I want to say yeah. I want to say yes. right, Amy?
Say yes, of course.
But the one thing I'd like to say about the three-way tie is this example that I gave you guys. The broker had broker's equity in that account, and we're going to get to that down the road here. But I want you guys to realize something. Because he had that cushion there, that can save you from an error on that. So let's say there's a shortage, like in this case, the staff accidentally took a security deposit out of the trust. She should have taken it out of this trust, right? And we're going to get to that later, but having that broker's equity would really help if your three-way tie is off.
Yes.
So,
and it can be, I think we're thinking big amounts. I remember Jan DeMott, that's on the commission now. I took the trust account class with her several years ago when she was teaching it. And she gave an example of a deposit that was maybe 89 cents and the bank put it in as 98. So it literally was cents that it was off. But because she did that three-way tie diligently every 3 months, it was super easy for them to go and find.
Yes, I literally have been off 1 cent. And if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what can. I mean, it was the worst audit I think I've ever done, because how do you write up a broker for 1 penny?
I know.
Amy, you're 100% right. 100% right.
Yeah. Anything else on three-way tie, or would we like to talk about a review of files?
Let's move on to review of
Okay.
files. Like I said, I just hope that everybody is a little bit more calm about the three-way tie. I think that I think people just get kind of excited about it, and it's a very easy elementary.
It is. And, I guess the thing I would say is a broker myself is we're good at selling property, right? That's why we've got a real estate license. We maybe didn't get into this business to do book work necessarily.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to step into that role, you've got to be accountable for it. Even if you've got an accountant in your office that takes care of it, you
Right.
got to inspect what you expect from people to make sure that it is accurate. But you've got to fall in love with money, because I know you love cash and commission checks.
Yes.
This is a part of the responsibility. And I do think people get a little weird about it. I agree.
Yeah.
But if you've got a system to it, you're golden.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I know some brokers kind of relax or like, I've got Amy doing my trust, I'm fine. But at the same time, I always kind of flip it back on the broker and say, listen, if it was me and my name was on it and my head's on the chopping block, I would just look at it monthly. Just, does it make sense? Is it flowing? It takes 2 seconds to sign your name and date, saying I looked at it. It's as Amy said, golden.
Yeah. And I've actually been impressed, Colleen, the last year or so. I've had several brokers have their trust account person who's not licensed
Mhm.
actually in the pre-broker trust account class,
Love that.
just to hear all of these things. And I think that's a great, even though they're not working towards their broker's license, it's a great learning experience because they haven't gone through the licensing things that we have. So that's great.
Love that.
Okay,
Love that.
now review of files.
Okay. So I wrote a couple notes, and one of my favorite quotes, and there's a reason I'm going to give this to you, but it says, normal is an illusion. What is normal for a spider is chaos for the fly. And why I like that saying is it's like Amy may have one way of doing it and Colleen might have another way of doing it. Do what you're comfortable with your files. Do what makes sense to you. I reached out. I had a really nice conversation with a Nebraska broker recently, and I loved what he said. He said, Colleen, he said, your file should tell a story. And he said, the file should be in order. And he said, anyone should be able to pick up that file and tell you what's going on with it. So I would ask you agents, if I picked up your file right now, any one of your files right now, would I be able to tell you what happened? That's the goal. That's the goal. Have everything in there as it transpired so that Amy could pick it up, I could pick it up, and we would be able to turn around and tell you what happened instead of you telling us.
And thank you for that too, because now I'm going to tie it back to the three-way tie. I mean, we always move one step forward and take one step back on this list, it seems like so far. I've got a lot of brokers in pre-broker that are maybe going to be taking over the office manager, broker of record role, but I've got a lot of folks with opportunities to buy an existing brokerage, which means they may get audited for a trust account or for files that happened before they owned the brokerage.
Right.
And so, first of all, make sure that the house is in order before you buy the house. It's like a home inspection.
Exactly.
Make sure that the trust account is three-way tied and in crystal clear order, but then really know what that system is for those files. Do your own self audit before you purchase.
Absolutely.
To see if you can open up that file and they read like a book. That's a great quote, because nothing is normal in real estate, right? There's no two deals that are ever the same.
Right.
And that's why these systems are important. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll let you get back.
No, that's an excellent point. And that has happened where, boy, it's terrible when I'm on the other end and I'm looking at broker B, and broker B trusted broker A that everything was in good order. Auditor comes in and it wasn't. And the commission's been really good about not, taking that situation as Amy, which is a really good situation, Amy. And they're able to look at that. And sometimes they can, change the respondent or things like that. So they do, but that has happened. So,
okay.
Yep. And then, I just had a couple more notes on the files. Just make sure that they're retrievable, they're authentic. that they're understandable and that they're in good order. And then I think this is on our agenda somewhere, but with files, our rules in chapter 13.22, it says that brokers shall retain their records for a period of 5 years. So remember, those of you that are like, how long do I have to hold on to my files? It's 5.
Perfect.
And then that's it for files, I feel.
And, really, I know that people used to store and shred back in the day of triplicate copies, right? Where we pressed really,
Yeah.
really hard on our offers. But my understanding is these e-signature programs, I know the Iowa Association of Realtors has one. I don't remember the name of it right now. A lot of people are using DocuSign or .loop.
Mhm.
They really pretty much have said that there's unlimited storage. So there's no reason to not be able to keep these for the 5 years or even more if there's a reason you as a broker choose to, for whatever reason. But these digital files, they're able to just send those almost to you in a loop, correct, with the items that you request, correct?
Yeah, so I give files a lot of different ways. Sometimes they're super easy to open up and I'm like, what did you do? Because because sometimes people send me zip files and I have a hard time opening those.
Sure.
And they did tell me it was a Google Doc. And I was like, I like it. I was able to click on every file. So I get them through, what's the program you guys use? Loop. I've gotten them that way. They give me access for as long as it takes for the audit, and then they cut off that access. I get files one at a time. I've got brokers all over the state, and everybody's comfort level is a little bit different. And so, I just take them as long as I can open them and I can get to them. That satisfies me. So
Okay. And then I didn't know whether this would be a good chance, and I'm not sure how easy this is for me to pull up here. I was hoping, because truth be told, we just did an audit together, correct?
correct.
And I just thought I would give this audit doc sheet that you had sent to me. Sorry, I know my screen's a little wonky here for you. Hold please, hold please. Technology.
I can see it on my end if that helps you, Amy.
Well, I was going to see, can you see I'll just stop share really quick. That way I know I'm finding it correctly. I just thought I would share that list of audit docs. So that people can see that. I don't know, this is something you had sent to me during the process of just documents needed.
Yep, correct. Yep.
And then this was the list for trust accounts.
Mhm.
This was a list for closed files.
Correct.
I mean, she's referenced this 13.5 here as well. So
Yep.
for anyone watching this might be an opportunity for you to pull out your camera phone and just take a quick snap of this, because this was a really good list that she sent, so that when I did my audit, we did have a little file issue with getting things to you. But what that did is it allowed me to have a checklist. I downloaded everything into PDFs and just sent that over to Colleen. But I love checklists. What can I say? But that helped a lot.
Yeah. And I just tried to make this so it's not overwhelming and daunting. So, am I going to look at more documents? Perhaps, it depends what happened in the transaction or what's going on. But that is a very, especially that trust account portion, that's a really solid list of things that we absolutely want to see.
Yeah. So hopefully you've taken a picture of that screen. I think that one would be very helpful for you. But I'll get back into our actual presentation now for us as well. So have we hit on everything that we maybe wanted to with review of files and the 5-year rule?
I think so, yeah, Amy.
Okay, good. Then how about self-reporting? So you've got an issue. Something's not right.
No.
And we call Colleen and say, help.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Do they get any grace? But is it that a guaranteed? What does that all look like for you?
Sure. And that's a really that's an important question. And we just had it, we just talked about it we just had a commission meeting today, and the subject again was brought up, and the chair said, what a difference it makes when someone self-reports. He just flat out said that. And I thought that's just beautiful, because that's, and I would ask people, all you licensees, a question in regard to that. And it's like, if Amy self-reported, and let's flip it where you're on the commission side, all you licensees are on the commission side, or you're the auditor. Amy said, I called and said, I have a problem. I think I've had some embezzlement in my trust account. Or Colleen doesn't call. I wait till that auditor comes. I don't say a word. I hold my breath, hoping Colleen or that auditor, whoever's coming, doesn't question me. And I can tell you, I'm flipping it on you licensees, and I'm asking you, who would you prefer, Amy, or would you prefer Amy disclosing, or would you prefer Colleen not disclosing?
Yeah.
That's how the commission looks at it, is exactly how you feel about it.
Yeah. So even if it's a penny off,
Yeah.
self-reporting is better than waiting.
I had a broker in Mason City. I love them. They always have good questions for me. Whenever they either email or call, I'm like, I know this is a good question. When they call, when that number comes through, I'm like, here we go. They always have really funny things happening there. But yeah, they've been off before, and I took a look at their general ledger. I took a look at their and believe me, it's not like the bookkeeper said. The bookkeeper spent 2 days on it, and this is a big business in Mason City. And she said, Colleen, I've looked at it, my eyes are blurry. I honestly don't know what to do. I looked at it. I said, it has to be in the error has to be in your general ledger. She went back, and sure enough, one of the formulas had gotten off. Case closed, move on. She moved on, I moved on. But sometimes you just need that extra set of eyes to look at it, because it's a fresh set of eyes. And
I think it's not uncommon too. I think brokers probably have that staff person that's been in that role forever, and we don't know how to run the brokerage without them.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, that person that's maybe in that accounting role that does trust account and commissions for you, there's maybe some high turnover in it as well. I feel like I see one or the other, not just a middle road. And when you've got a lot of turnover, get back into those books, because every once in a while there's something that was miscommunicated. I know I worked at a brokerage that when the accountant left, it was like Post-it notes all around the edge of their computer as reminders for things. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is going on here? So really using that as a time again to get in and make sure things are solid. And if they're off, call Colleen.
Yeah, and it's not, one thing I try to say whenever I pop in on a Zoom is, listen, we're all human. We all make mistakes. I don't care if you're a bank, an auditor, a licensee, a broker, we all make mistakes. So it's not the end of the world. And I have had it where if you're off and you're off, I've had a couple brokers just try to ignore it. It doesn't go away.
Right.
And he was off for months at a time. And I'm like, why didn't you call? Why didn't you, it raises more questions when you just try to ignore it. It doesn't go away typically.
No, it does not go away.
No.
Time does not heal that wound.
Yes, exactly.
Trust account audits. Now I brought up your form already, so I maybe got too excited and gave your checklist away.
Great. Yeah.
But I was thinking with this, and then of course, share whatever's on your mind. What is that process of the audit? The first time I heard you speak, you told this great story about showing up to do a random audit at a brokerage, and they tried to lock the doors and shut the lights off, and you ran around to the back of the building and still got in. Is that a true story?
That's a true story. And believe me,
I love it.
I had my high heels on and I was racing against the 70-year-old broker. So, may the best woman win.
Right. So first of all, part of the reason I wanted to have Colleen join us for an experience like this is she is not the principal. She is not the devil. There's nothing crazy going on here. She is here to, one, do a job, but she's also here to support and answer questions. I think so far our time together has proven that she's absolutely willing to pick up the phone and talk to folks. So that, if anything, is the one takeaway I wanted to do with an experience like this, is reach out and use her as part of your team when you've got questions as a broker around these accounts. But what does that audit look like? We've talked a little bit about you showing up. We've talked about sharing files with .loop, but if there's anything, maybe you could dive in on what that looks like, whether things are going to be a surprise or not.
Sure. So, one thing we do audits regularly, and I know I am, like right now I'm in Polk County. I'm kind of a vision girl, a tunnel vision girl. So when I'm in Polk County, I tend to stay in Polk County until everybody's audited. But we actually have a database that tracks every sole broker, sole proprietor, and firm. So I can, at any day, anybody in the office can go to any broker, any sole proprietor, pop in your record, and they'll be able to see when your last audit was, what the rating was. Everyone gets a rating after the audit. So if you had clean books, no issues, you get a good rating. If I had any comments, perhaps I would say no trust account reviewed files. Perhaps I would say we discussed this or we discussed that. So there's an internal that you folks would never know about, never see. But I do try to fill that out. I try to be detailed in how the audit actually really went. If there's findings in an audit, and I would like to piggyback on something Amy said. Auditing, yes, I'm out there doing my job, but the other balance part of this job and that I see is compliance. So it doesn't do me any good to come in and, let's say, write up Amy, and I leave in a whirlwind. I leave to my next audit, and Amy's going, I don't know what just happened, and nor do I know what I'm supposed to do to correct it. So I don't want that to happen under my watch. So what we do, or what I do, is we sit down before the audit's done. If there's issues, and we say, okay, here's what happened. Here's the rule. And every report's going to have a rule, and then what I saw, rule, and then what happened. So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to say, hey, broker, say, Amy, what can we do different? What do you see happening so this doesn't happen again? So there is that opportunity to troubleshoot. You're not this person on an island and you're stuck. So there's lots of resources out there. And we do a follow-up if there's deficiencies. Let's say there's a shortage in someone's trust account. We'll come back in a year and we're going to see if the broker used corrective measures, and the same issue. I've just done 2 of them in the last week. So the commission said, auditor, we want you to go back. There were issues, there were shortages, and in broker A and broker B, we want you to go back in a year and make sure that those changes have been implemented. And I did. Pristine audit. They both passed with flying colors. So typically you folks want to do things right. You want to be in compliance. And if you get anything out of this Zoom from the auditor, it's going to be, I don't enjoy writing up people. I do not enjoy writing reports with 5 findings. What I do enjoy is getting folks into compliance. That's the main goal for me, is get into compliance. How can we get you in compliance? How can we make you stay in compliance?
Yeah. And, I don't know what happened a couple years ago, but I had a bunch of agents calling me, that I just know because I've been around forever. And they said, my broker is holding my commission check until my file is compliant. Can you believe that? I've got a mortgage payment. And I said, love you, but I believe in that broker. If that's a policy that they've created, I'm not going to get into the politics of if that's a good idea or a bad idea. But if that's the standard for getting compliant files, so that when we get to Colleen, there's no issues. And again, we're opening up every folder and we immediately know the story. It's called standards, and that is not a bad thing. And it's absolutely not a bad thing as a broker for you to put those in place.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking on you, Amy, it's, I always joke around. If Amy's waiting for that earnest money check, sometimes the other person that's supposed to be bringing it to Amy really could care less. But if Amy, on the other hand, has your commission check, your rubber is burning on the roads to get to Amy. So it's kind of ironic, but yes.
Standards are okay. That's not a bad thing. Have a good old fashioned checklist.
Right.
How about software for the trust account? And then I kind of felt like maybe you wanted to dive into property management a little bit. I'll let you roll with that. However, I'm more of a residential kind of gal. So anything that you have to offer with property management on that side would be absolutely thrilling.
Okay, so I don't have a whole lot. What I tell people with software is we don't care what you use. We don't care if you use QuickBooks. We don't care if you use a pen and a paper. We don't care what you use, just do your job. My understanding with software is if you make, this is what I've been told, because I'm on the other end. I'm not entering like you guys would be or your staff would be, but I'm on the end of, here's what I need. Print me this and this and this. We do ask that whatever you get, that you know how to use it. Number one, my understanding with all these programs is if you make a mistake, it can have a domino effect.
Right.
And it's very hard to correct. So, you want somebody in there that knows if you're going to take that leap with software, make sure you know how to use it. Property management, I am a little bit familiar with Appfolio, Buildium, and recently Rent Pro. Those are three I know that are used. And the thing I like about Appfolio and Buildium, and believe me, you guys can use whatever you want, but I will tell you one of the things I like about those two software programs is they do an internal three-way tie. So what that is at the end of it, any day, the broker can look at his account and the general ledger. It literally does a reconciliation on a daily basis.
Wow. Okay.
It will tell you out of balance if it's out of balance. So I do like those for those reasons. But again, you need to have somebody that knows what they're doing with those, because they're massive programs. And the only other thing I wanted to say about software is listen, anybody's going to want to try to sell you their stuff, right? I can get you 4 salesmen up here, and Bob is going to want to sell you whatever Bob's selling, whether it's Buildium, Appfolio, QuickBooks. Your job is read the reviews and check on that customer service, because what I'm hearing from brokers is I just spent a bucket load of money and I am waiting a week for a callback. So I say to you folks, beware, read those reviews, and listen, if I want to sell you something, I'm going to promise you the moon. But at the end, it's your job to make sure they're going to deliver the moon to you.
Yeah. And I have found too, the reviews is a great idea. I'm glad you said that one. I've even gone just on YouTube and, just searched trust account for real estate. And there's been individual reviews or demos, not from the company. Those are on YouTube as well. If you wanted to watch those, are more professional. But I've seen just some demos from agents of, kind of giving the pros and cons. Though I found that to be a really good resource as well.
Great. That's a great resource. Wow.
Yeah, I found quite a bit on there, but I also think it helps whenever you're setting up, whether it's a contact resource management system for your brokerage, or this for the trust account, or anything else that you're doing for systems. Talk with other brokers, call up another broker. I know we get kind of in our huts, but with this kind of stuff, to me, that's not necessarily proprietary information. What you use as a trust account program, talk to other brokerages and see what they like. People that you trust in anywhere in the state or in your market, ask what they're using, maybe talk to bigger brokerages than you, smaller, same size as you, and get some feedback about what's working there for them, because that's going to give you some really good feedback too, I think.
Yeah, no, that's right. And you're ahead of yourself, Amy, because I I've had a couple brokers in this past year at the end of 2022. They couldn't get customer service, and I can't remember if it was at Foley or Billdam. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What I ended up doing, just what you said, Amy, I hooked up broker A from Council Bluffs, and I asked permission, and I said, listen, and her name was Amy, great broker, great broker. And I said, listen, Amy, can I have Joe over here in Polk City call you, because Joe can't get anybody to pick up the phone. And they connected, and he told her everything she needed to do, or I'm sorry, vice versa. Amy helped that person get everything that he needed to help with.
Yeah,
So
great.
yeah, use
Great.
each other for resources. I think that's a wonderful idea, Amy.
We're hashtag Iowa Nice after all, right? Let's help each
Yeah.
other out. This has nothing to do with proprietary, where you get your leads from or anything like that,
Right.
or your marketing plan. But this, I think, would help give some really good insight. And I do think is definitely one of the intimidating things. I've got a lot of folks that are with smaller brokerages, maybe looking to purchase as someone's retiring in little smaller town Iowa than what I'm here in West Des Moines. Great opportunities for them to buy a brokerage, but they're still using pen and paper,
Yeah.
which, as Colleen says, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to move into 2023, and you got to investigate some of that, I get it. It's intimidating. So just rely on each other. I think that's great. I'm glad you've had some positive interaction with that.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's, I think, another big one.
Okay.
Is the broker's return of earnest money when it's disputed.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to put out one little thing that I get a lot of questions on. When a deal falls apart for whatever reason, we do a release of earnest money, and there's a second part to it, a release of the purchase agreement. That's really two different things that we're tackling on that form when we do a release. One is the seller saying and the buyer saying, we'll walk away from this deal. We realize we're parting ways. The second thing that you got to tackle is the earnest money. So you can agree to walk away from the purchase agreement and still argue over those earnest money funds. So those are two very different beasts there that we've got to control and figure out. And if your buyer and seller cannot come to a conclusion about what to do with that earnest money, and it sits in the broker's trust account, that's kind of the area that we're getting into with 13.1 number 8, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to try to switch screens here. Hopefully I've got a little bit of a document that will help Colleen out here a little bit. And I don't know that you wrote this, Colleen, so please forgive me. I probably should have shared this with you a little bit sooner, but here we are. This was a cheat sheet that I'd gotten about this 13.1 A and B. I believe this is the actual code that was written, and then this bold is the layman's terms that don't sound like it was written in Latin or something like that.
Right, exactly.
But would you mind, I should probably just stop talking. I'm out of my league and you're the expert on this one. What does that look?
Nope, you you make some real good solid points with each topic that we're discussing. So a funny story before we dive into earnest money disputes, because I know you guys live the life. So this is the only reason I'm telling you the story. So it was way up by Sioux City. And I had a broker, and she had $250 earnest money. So a lot of you guys are like, that's nothing. So what happened is these two people both were kind of got snarky. They wouldn't sign the release. So the broker let it go through the small claims. They decided to sue each other over $250. And I don't know how that works with court costs and everything. I didn't ask. Anyway, the judge finds both of them at fault. So as soon as that case gets closed, my smart little broker up there in Sioux City said, 125 for you, 125 for you. So and I'll tell you, we'll just dive a little bit into how she did that. And it's just by following A and B. I would like to say 4 reasons why we get to this point where Amy wants to talk about this point, and she's so right. Number one reason, the broker just really, I've got some brokers around the state, and they're like, you know what? You're not going to get involved as a state until a 3-year mark. So I'm going to let it ride. I don't want to deal with it. I don't care. And I'm thinking in my head, we're going to come in 3 years and make you deal with it. So for me, I'd rather deal with it today while it's still fresh in my head what happened in the file. But that anyway, that happens. So that's one, broker doesn't want to get involved. Two, a lot of times you folks can't find either the buyer or seller. I've had stories where people just disappear.
Yeah.
You know, up in Storm Lake area, they go back home. They just up and disappear, and they don't care about the earnest money. They're going home. And then there's the buyer and the seller. Obviously, like that case that we started with, they're not getting along. So here's the rule I like, and I hope that if you get anything out of this rule, and I'm so happy that Amy brought this up, because a lot of you guys are like, I can't get them to sign the release, so I'm out. Wrong. So how and why I like this rule is how it reads for you guys. This rule is for you, and I want you to know you can use it. And if you have questions, call. I have seen people follow this rule and it comes before the real estate commission, because let's say Amy and I are, Amy's the seller and I'm the buyer. All right. And a broker made a decision to return the earnest money to Amy. The broker wrote a letter, said, I broker and giving the money to Amy. Here's why. And this is your 30-day notice. And the broker signs it and sends it to both of us. I get mad. I'm like, I want that money. Well, number one, me getting mad doesn't contest this rule. It says in the absence of a pending court action. So because I call and complain to the broker on the phone, broker keeps moving forward to give the money to Amy. But the beauty of this rule is it says you need to contact your parties at their last known address. So again, it doesn't tell you guys, you have to Google them all over the United States to find them. It says you send the certified letter at their last known address, setting forth the broker's proposed actions and the grounds for the decision. You wait 30 days, you cut the check, you're done. Now, the only difference between A and B is A is if the money goes to the buyer, you wait 30 days from the date of dispute. And B is if the money goes to the seller, then you're going to wait 6 months. That's basically the difference between those two rules, A and B. And I like what it says here in part. I won't read the whole rule, but it says in the absence of a pending civil action or a written agreement. So it says you can't have that going on. If you don't, continue. And it says, I love this part of it for you guys. It says it shall not be grounds for disciplinary action when upon the passage, da, 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 da. So this rule tells you right up front, you are protected as long as you follow this protocol. And it's a beautiful system. And you don't have to wait for 3 years until the auditor comes in and writes you up because you've got old earnest money. Take care of it. Use this rule properly. And it's a beautiful rule, and it keeps your trust account super clean.
It does. How many, and again, I don't expect you to know exact numbers, but how many times do you think brokers are utilizing this rule versus waiting the 3 years?
Oh, that's a really good question, Amy. And it's a lot, because every time I jump on a Zoom, guess what I'm preaching? So word is starting to get out.
Okay.
13.18, 13.18, 13.18. I'm a good, and people like you are a good at it. Like, you're the one that had this document. I didn't. So people like you are getting the word out saying you're not stuck, people.
Yeah.
And just because your buyer and seller are not getting along and not working with you does not prohibit the broker from making a business decision on what happened and moving forward. And I love this rule. Like, this is probably one of my favorite rules. It was one of the hardest rules for me. I could not get my head wrapped around it for the longest time. Here I am working, I'm auditing, and I'm just like, because I think sometimes we make things harder. And but at the end of the day, this is a terrific resource for you people.
And I think the one thing I would just want to just share here really quick is whoever is watching this video is on just wants CEs. Maybe that's part of the situation. Okay, I get it. Or you're stepping into that broker role, and now you've got to think like a broker. You're not an agent anymore. And when I read this rule as an agent, that's where I think we get all up in our heads, because I still want to fight and advocate for my client, whether it's the buyer or the seller. Well, I'm not an agent anymore reading this. I am a broker. And when it gets to the point of a broker making these decisions, the agent is done. If you wanted to advocate for your clients, you should have done it already. You should have encouraged them to take that court action, or let them educate them the consequences if they don't move forward. So when you read this rule, I agree, we get all up in our heads. I agree with your statement on that. We make it harder than what it needs to be. But pick a lane. Are you an agent or are you a broker? Because as a broker, you're advocating this differently. You've got a different role than the agent that's part of the transaction. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, with earnest money, when it goes down to the title company and Mr. Smith, the attorney, one thing that I need you guys to think about when you're moving forward is okay, if it's down in the attorney's trust or the title company trust, are you still going to have control of those funds if the deal, and you guys' terminology, bombs or doesn't go through? Right. So it's things like that you guys need to think about, that because ultimately you guys are all about your clients, right? And you're all about protecting your clients. And so, those are some questions that you need to ask yourself if you do decide you don't want a trust account and you're dealing with earnest money. You guys need to make sure that you don't lose control of it if it goes down the street to, a title or an attorney. Make sure that you have some type of agreement with them that, hey, if this deal doesn't go through, what happens to that money? Can I get it back? What happens to it?
Yeah. That's a great point. That is definitely a pro versus con to consider. Mm-hmm. Do we want to jump into a few frequently asked questions?
Sure.
Information on the purchase agreement.
Mm-hmm.
This one I kind of wrote, and I maybe didn't write it correctly, but you had mentioned how you're reviewing purchase agreements and making sure that agents know what they're signing off on, because every agreement can be a little bit different. I know we're starting to see a lot of universal purchase agreements, but brokers aren't required to use those. So I'll let you massage the question and then answer it however you feel is appropriate.
Sure. So I think, we've touched on some of this, but I think you agents, if I could ask you one thing today, it would be just slow down. Look at what you're filling out. If there's a date field, why are you not filling it out? If there's an accepted field, why are you not filling it out? I mean, those are the questions I have for you guys. Like, just all I'm asking you to do is just slow down. And if there's a line, fill it out. Yeah. Again, don't just check the other box and move on. Think about people's earnest money like it's your best friend's earnest money, or your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or whoever is your favorite person. That's how these purchase agreements need to protect your client. If it's at Attorney Smith's, it better be at Attorney Smith's, right? If there's other provisions, don't be afraid to use that. There's lines in your purchase agreement, and I haven't seen, Amy's probably seen the latest and greatest purchase agreements, but usually there's other provisions in there. And it's a great space to put if something different happens to the earnest money. There's a great place. If you're related to somebody or you have a interest in something, great space. So we're looking at that purchase agreement harder and harder every year because we get more familiar with them. So again, I think the biggest thing, if you could take away anything about the purchase agreements, make sure that earnest money is specific on that purchase agreement. Where is it exactly? That if you could get one thing out of this talk, that's going to be it on the purchase agreement.
Okay, perfect. The $1,000 of the broker's personal money that can go into the trust account. I know that we've all learned that these escrow accounts and the trust account, we can never commingle personal funds. That's illegal. But the state of Iowa has made this exception that we can have $1,000 of the personal funds of a broker go into a trust account. So is that always that they can maintain 1,000? What all does that $1,000 cover? What's that there for?
Yep. So bank charges, wire fees, and you can choose. I always try to use this range with people. You can choose between 0 and 1,000 and anything in between there. So you can have nothing, or you can have 1,000, or you can have 500, or you can have 2. You guys decide what you think you want. What I've seen positive with the up it to 1,000 is if there is a mishap, like we had recently in my recent trust account case, where that staff accidentally pulled out $750 out of the wrong account. If you had that $1,000 in there, that would have absorbed that mistake. So it's just that money's for you, and we don't consider that commingling funds at all. That's your money. It's by right. That's your money. And if you close your account out today, by right, you get to take the money that you put in, you get to take it out. So it's your money to do with what you think. Oh, another thing that I've seen is you order checks.
Yeah.
That's a couple $100 for you guys. And so that money again would absorb that fee. So it's things like that.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Late deposits of the earnest money that either go beyond what's on the purchase agreement or beyond the 5 business days. That's the state law. Anything that you would maybe want to share about if and how you like that documented?
Yeah. And I just say, you guys just throw a note in the file. I've got really good brokers around the state. They'll just put the envelope in. They'll even put the envelope as showing when it was mailed. And so they put that envelope in the file folder, and I'm like, that's terrific.
Okay.
Or if they don't, they'll just put a note in the file and move on.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. I think we probably already talked about the audit process
Yep.
enough already. So,
Yep.
but I like to throw that one in there because I know that was a big one, but I think we hit it pretty well. Any common cases? You mentioned earnest money, or not earnest money, insurance being a really big audit issue.
Yes.
And again, I think the basic policy is maybe around $150 is what I experience in my own business. There's lots of upgrades that you can do to E&O insurance. I always encourage read your policy every single year because they sometimes have new little add-ons that you can upgrade. Colleen, I really see one of 3 things happening. People pay it on their own and then give a copy of their policy to their broker. Mm-hmm. Their broker pays for it, and then on their next agent billing, they want reimbursed. Or the third one is the broker really does pay for it as a perk for working for that brokerage. Whatever your scenario is of those 3, and you'll probably hear me say this multiple times if you're in class with me for different law updates and things. I repeat this one a lot. Whoever pays for it, you're still responsible for making sure that it got paid. So please get a copy of it. There is no reason for $1,000 fine over $150 bill. And if you're having a tough year, that's what I would ask Santa to give you. That's what I would ask for Christmas. Or if you're having a really affluent year and you're a generous person, go to your accounting department, ask who needs help, and help pay that agent's bill. Because this is more important than almost your cell phone to me, that you've got E&O insurance, not just because it's the law, because it's almost like if we were a doctor and made a mistake type of insurance, right? Or malpractice version of it. So it's really important. The last time back in the day, remember the commission used to send out those newsletters with everyone that had gotten fined.
Yeah.
That and a Pottery Barn magazine on a Friday, I would cancel all my plans, Colleen.
Right.
Right. I loved it.
Yeah.
The last one though that I was able to read that was sent out, there were over 200 names on it that had gotten $1,000 fine. That's $200,000 in fines. That's a lot of money. So I know I kind of went on a bunny trail there for you.
No,
but you had started that one earlier. So let's check, insurance as an audit or as a common case for you. But what else are you kind of seeing out there?
Well, on the audits, I did last month, I had to do 14 consent agreements. So out of 50 E&O audits, 14 were non-compliant. You guys, that's a terrible ratio. So Amy's right, just do it. Um, Common cases also are your CEs. I'll touch on that too, Amy, because similar to E&O, so when you go in and you attest your credits, when you renew your license, at that time, at that place, at that moment, you're saying, I took 36 hours prior to me filling out this application. Not, so if it's 25 and you're taking a class tomorrow, then either you wait to fill out your application to renew your license, or you put your 25 hours down. But be honest, the CE audits are being done, terrible compliance. I think there were 10 out of 50 on those in 1 month.
Wow.
So be honest on that attesting. We make it easy for you to check the box, but be honest, if you're checking that box and we say, how many hours did you took, and you put 36, make sure you have the 36. Because when we do an audit, if you took 24 in reality and you said 36, guess what? $500 fine, probable cause, you're getting sent a consent agreement.
So Colleen makes a great point, and I know when I teach continuing ed, I jam out all 36 hours, including the mandatory, in 1 week. We go big or go home. I make it really easy for you, but don't just get frisky that we're almost done and say that you've done all the hours until you have all of their certificates. You
Right.
are responsible for storing your certificates. I know my school and a lot of schools, I've got a digital student sign in where I store them. But I still even make a dot loop, or for those of you that use maybe DocuSign, I have a folder that is just for CEs. And inside that personal folder in dot loop, it is the year that I renewed with all my CE certificates. So I've got them digitally all over the place where I've taken classes, but I'm also storing them separately so that they're in one spot. My understand, Colleen, when you renew your license, you can attest
Mhm.
or you can upload your certificates.
Yeah.
Attesting is obviously the easiest, but
Yes.
uploading those certificates is going to prevent you. I think you're going to be able to see those. No?
Well, most people like you want us to have them immediately when you're renewing your license. You're like, it's off my plate. You've got it. But the reality is of it, it clogs up the portal somewhat, and
Okay.
B, you still need to produce those to the auditor when they're going to say I got chose for a CE audit.
Sure.
I
Okay.
would have to produce my certificates. I couldn't just say, hey, I uploaded them.
Okay,
Look
gotcha.
there. Look there. You still have to email the certificates to the person doing the audit. So yes, you can upload, but I hear so much negative energy on the problems that they have trying to upload them, the
Okay.
systems
Okay,
laggy
good to know.
because we have thousands of people renewing their license in 6 weeks. And so I get a lot of negative feedback from people who are trying to upload. So I'm just like, use the attest button if you can.
Okay.
Save
Okay.
yourself the misery and the frustration.
But then I'm going to go back to store them in a neutral spot,
Yes.
especially if you've been all over the state taking CEs like I do.
Yeah.
I pull them from everywhere. And even if you did all of them with me, I would still get those in a separate spot so that you don't have that panic moment if you do get an audit.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on your common cases?
Yeah, I think the only other two I probably would like to throw out there is, your unlicensed property management and your people out there doing unlicensed property management. So we've got a lot of unlicensed property management firms that aren't even licensed in the state doing property management. We also have people that are doing property management duties, such as signing owner agreements and leases, and they don't have a real estate license. And it's third-party property management I'm talking about. I'm not talking about properties that people own. I'm talking about third-party property management. We have a lot of violations with that. Almost monthly, we've always got them in there.
And has anyone, there was a little bit of a law update, I'm not quite sure when, for a penalty for an unlicensed person practicing real estate, that it could be up to 10% or $10,000 of the value.
Yeah,
Have you
it's,
seen
yeah.
anyone get charged with that yet, or?
We've had some pretty bad cases. So, I've been here since 2008, so I've seen a lot of numbers that the commission decided. And I would like to remind people that staff does not have anything to do with fines, imposing fines and discipline. That's 100% real estate commission based. And we do not get the money for all these fines. They go into a general fund. That's not our money. So just so people know, when we're out there and they get these fines, say for E&O, we don't see that money.
You're
And
not
that's
getting a
the
big
real
fat bonus
estate.
because
Yeah,
you audit more files and find more problems.
yeah. So
Right. That's the fair way to do it, but I'm rooting for you.
yeah.
Any other common cases? Did we hit that one okay?
We hit that one okay, Amy.
Perfect. My last one, and you'd mentioned this in a conversation and it got my ears all perked up, was fraud, or I think the word actually you used earlier in our session today was embezzlement with trust accounts, or maybe some things going on in other areas. How about that one for you?
Yeah, we've had a really uptick in embezzlement cases for one thing. It's anywhere from a husband, a wife, a bookkeeper, a broker embezzling the funds. It was so bad that in 1 month, when I was reviewing the books, one real estate place was short $600,000 in 1 month. So in other words, the money in the bank versus what should have been in the bank was a shortage of $600,000. So embezzlement's on the rise. As you guys know, it's just sad. There's a lot of wire fraud going on. You agents need to be careful. I had a broker who was a broker for 25 years, a very seasoned broker, a lovely lady. And she got an email and it said the wiring instructions had changed. And this broker did not pick up the phone and call to ensure that it really was a legit email. She forwarded the instructions onto the bank, and the short story is the sellers lost $30,000 of the proceeds. So be very, very careful with your work, and don't be afraid to stop and pick up the phone book. We've had property management's a huge problem for embezzlement for us, a huge problem. We've got people that, an example, we had a broker who had 5 maintenance companies. And so let's pretend Amy's the owner. Amy was getting 5 different invoices from 5 different maintenance companies. How legit was that? We'll never know, right? Because Amy's property management agreement with that broker said, I'm disclosing I have 15 maintenance companies and you may get billed by them. So, Amy, unbeknownst to Amy, signs it thinking, okay, I can trust this person. And so we've got that going on. Property management is just probably, a horrible thing. I would say, just to secure those of you that want to go into property management, make sure your agreements are 100% fluid. Go through an attorney. That I should be able to pick any one of you guys' property management agreements up, and I should be able to tell you where the earnest money, or I'm sorry, where the rents are going, right? So that's how fluid your agreements need to be. And it will, I also want to say too, with embezzlement cases and things, one thing I've seen that could perhaps help some of you is you've got 2 options with property management. One is you can put it into a trust, one trust, several owners. We're going to audit that. 2, the second option you guys have in relation to this fraud and things like that is each owner would have their own account. And to me, that seems such a safe way to do business.
Yeah.
With all this embezzlement and fraud going on around the state. But again, it's your choice and it's your client's choice how they want to set things up. So
yeah. And really, I think too, as a brokerage, and I don't know that I've got the best answers for on this, is what safety procedures do you have in place to prevent this embezzlement or wire fraud? And then also, what do you have in place as notification if it does go down? What's your communication? I know that you might want to look at some sort of business insurance or something like that that could help prevent some of these security issues that could happen. One great piece of advice a settlement agent gave me one time was, don't ever send wire instructions that say wire instructions. Have it be coded as apple pie recipe or something like that electronically. And then I think, Colleen, when you made a good point that something different came in and you didn't make a phone call. That's what I call the meatloaf method. Here's my point. Do you remember the Meatloaf song, 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad?
Yes.
Yeah. Of call, text, and email, do 2 out of those 3 in order to secure that someone got the offer, that someone got the money, that was a correct change. Do that one extra step. I call that the meatloaf method.
That's an excellent.
As corny as that is,
excellent.
make that extra call or text. That's a really good one too, Colleen.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, when we're talking about fraud and embezzlement, I think one thing that everyone can learn from this last series that Amy and I are in is don't ever, ever give one person too much access.
Yeah.
And I go back, I default to the big Rita Crudwell case in Little Town, Dixon, Illinois. And that woman was able to embezzle $50 million from a small town. But the one theme she had, you guys, is they gave her access to absolutely everything. Writing checks, depositing checks, reconciliations, general ledger. She had it all. And that's one way you can have your checks and balances in place so that it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And when someone leaves, we always talk about onboarding processes when you get a new employee or a new agent, but what's the offboarding that if they literally show up one day and say, take this job and shove it under the refrigerator, that you can get them out of the building and that you already have passwords that you can immediately change, you know what the password's going to be. You're not trying to recreate some 28 character so that they can't get back in and do anything to you crazy once they step out of the building.
Yeah. And we had a case this in 2022 where a bookkeeper, I reached out to her and said, hey, it's time for an audit. She walked out of that office and never came back. And I contacted the broker. I said, I don't know what happened here, but I haven't heard from your bookkeeper in a week. And she said, Colleen, she said she walked out as soon as you contacted her and said it was time for an audit. She walked out of the building and I haven't seen her since. And she ended up embezzling, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars and she had done it over a period of, I'm going to say 10 years. She slowly started pulling money out. And this was a person the broker really trusted and considered a friend.
You know, when I watch shows, even like American Greed, I'm not sure if you've ever seen that show before on the Ion channel or whatever it is. I bet half of the cases on there around greed are from someone taking money from a trust or escrow account that was other people's money that didn't belong to them. This is nothing new, but that's why you got to have processes in place to prevent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Anything else that you would have on your list that maybe I missed?
No, I think you did a really, really thorough job, Amy, on your questions. And I really appreciate, you know, your time, and I appreciate your work with all these agents and getting them educated, because I think that's where the compliance is going to happen is after this, they're going to know. And if they don't know, they're going to reach out. And that's what we want. We want compliance. You guys want to be in compliance, and we want you in compliance. It's a fluid two-way street. So.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know what a busy person you are, and I really respect your time and all of your knowledge. And I just can't thank you enough. I know you did a lot of prep work with me on this, let alone spending time to create this. So thank you very, very much.
All right. You have a great rest of the year. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
Bye.